Glamis Castle. It is an unforgettable experience to approach Glamis Castle along the tree-lined drive on a shimmering summer's day. The haunted castle, solid and silent in the sunshine, has about it an air of mystery, even under these conditions. This splendid seat of the Earls of Strathmore is mentioned in 13th century records. Shakespeare refers to it in Macbeth, and it was the birthplace of Princess Margaret. What a place Glamis is for those who love mysteries. There is the haunted chamber, ringed stones and several with bedroom floors, now cleverly covered with built-in cupboards which are always full. The unexplained noises and strange nocturnal visitors the occupants have heard and seen. The fearsome appearance of huge and bearded Earl Beardy, who is reputed to have played cards with the devil and lost. The mysterious rooms that seem to have no doors. The everlasting bloodstain in King Malcolm's room, where Malcolm II was murdered in the 11th century. No amount of scrubbing and cleaning would remove it, so in the end the whole floor was boarded over. The pathetic and shy grey or white lady who is still seen quite often in the vicinity of the chapel dedicated to St. Michael. The unrecognised tall figure in a long coat fastened at the neck, which always enters a locked door halfway up a certain winding stair. The shadowy figures that are always been seen flitting about the castle. The bedroom door that opened every night, whether it was locked, bolted, or had furniture piled against it. Eventually the wall was taken down and the door removed. There is the Queen Mother's bathroom, where no one could sleep soundly when it was a bedroom. The tongueless woman who looks out of a barred window or runs across the park pointing to her bleeding mouth. And the ghostly little black boy who sits on a stone seat by the door in the Queen Mother's sitting room, and is supposed to be a Negro servant who was unkindly treated over 200 years ago. There is even a vampire legend at Glamis. A woman servant who was caught in the act of sucking the blood from one of her victims was hustled into a secret room and left to die. But that is not one of the ways to rid the world of a vampire, and legend has it her secret tomb is still open somewhere in Glamis, and her menace still potent. Then there is the mystery of the number of rooms at Glamis, and the story that house guests once hung towels out of every window from within the castle, but when they went outside, they discovered that no towel fluttered from any of the dark windows in one very old square tower. Nor could they find a way into that particular tower. The haunted chamber, sealed for years by walling, its position known only to a few, is thought to have got its name in the feuding days when a number of the Ogilvy clan, fleeing from the Lindsays, sought shelter at Glamis Castle. Although the owner at the time admitted them, he had no sympathy for their feud, and on the pretence of hiding them, he secured them in a remote chamber of the rambling castle, and left them there to starve. The chamber, it's said, still contains the remains of the unfortunate men, and when many years ago the Earl of the Day was much disturbed by strange nighttime noises, Lord Strathmore and some companions went to the haunted chamber. He collapsed, however, when he encountered the contents of the unventilated chamber. Today, the white-walled bare chamber has a sense of brooding uneasiness. A Dr. Lee records that when a woman and her young son were staying at the castle, and the child was asleep in an adjoining dressing room, the woman suddenly felt a blast of cold air which extinguished a nightlight at her bedside, but did not disturb the light in the room where the child was sleeping. The woman saw a tall figure in armour pass silently from her room into the dressing room, where the child awoke with a shriek. When the lady comforted her child, she learned that he had seen what he described as a giant, who came into the room and leaned over the bed, peering closely at him. High up in the uninhabited tower is the room where the ghost of Earl Beardy gambles with the devil. Earl Beardy was an ancient Lord Crawford who quarrelled with the Lord Glamis of the day as they gambled. Beardy, a huge man, was thrown down the stone staircase, only to return, according to legend, stamping his feet and roaring with rage, bellowing that if no man would play with him, he'd play with the devil himself. Instantly a tall dark man in a cloak strode in and play began. No one knows what happened, but the man was never seen again, and Earl Beardy died shortly afterwards. Ever after the ghost of Earl Beardy gambled, stamped and swore with something in the empty room with 2 doors and an ominous trapdoor. Even today, servants at the castle maintain that they hear at night the rattle of dice, heavy stamping noises, and the sound of men cursing from the direction of the empty room. A former Lord Castletown's daughter awoke during a night she was spending at Glamis to see the figure of a huge old man seated in front of the fire in her bedroom, and when he turned to look at her, she saw that his face was that of a dead man. Dr. Nicholson, a Dean of Brechin, occupying a room off the central staircase, awoke to see a tall figure in a cloak standing by his bed. The figure disappeared through a wall. A ghost that the Bishop of Brechin, Dr. Forbes, was to encounter the very next night. Once 3 sets of rooms on the clock landing were allotted respectively to Lady Strathmore's sister, Mrs. John Streatfeild and her husband, the Trevanians, Lord Strathmore's sister, and Mr. and Mrs. Munro from Lindertis, who occupied the Red Room with their young son sleeping in an adjoining room. During the night, Mrs. Munro was awakened by someone bending over her and a beard brushing her face. She woke her husband, and they both plainly saw a figure pass into their son's room. He immediately shrieked with terror and rushed into his parents' chamber, declaring that he'd seen a giant. The time was 4 o'clock. In the morning, Mr. Trevanian related that she and her husband had been awakened during the night by the restlessness of her little dog, and that they had both heard a tremendous crashing noise followed by the sound of a clock striking 4 times. The following night, the 3 couples sat up to watch, and although they saw nothing on that occasion, they all heard a loud crashing noise from the direction of the landing, and as they were examining the area with its great old clock, the hour of 4 boomed out. Lady Granville, elder sister of the Queen Mother, told someone that when she lived at Glamis, children often woke up at night in the upper room screaming that a huge, bearded man had leaned over their beds and looked at them. All furniture has long been taken out of these rooms, and they are never used in these days, nor is the hangman's chamber, which is said to be haunted by a butler who hanged himself there. Sir Shane Leslie said the ghost of Beardy had been seen by his Aunt Mary when she was a visitor at Glamis. There are many accounts of a white or grey lady being seen at Glamis Castle. One account relates that the figure was seen by 3 people at the same time from different vantage points, and there are persistent accounts of a strange, elusive racing figure, nicknamed Jack the Runner, who speeds across the park on moonlit nights. Lady Granville was in the chapel one sunny day when she saw a grey figure kneeling in one of the pews, and though the detail of the dress that the figure was wearing was quite clear, Lady Granville noticed that the sun shone through the figure and made a pattern on the floor. The last Lord Strathmore saw the grey lady in similar circumstances. He was checking the details of some of the interesting De Wint pictures in the chapel one afternoon when he turned round and saw the figure in grey kneeling in one of the pews. Not wishing to disturb her, Lord Strathmore tiptoed away quietly. And then there is the famous monster legend. It is said that nearly 200 years ago, a monster or frightfully deformed child was born within the family. A grotesque and bloated being that grew up in a hidden room to a large size and possessed enormous strength. A closely guarded secret known only to successive heirs and the faithful factors of the estate. The creature is said to have lived to an incredible age. One person who should know maintains that he died in 1921. That some such secret lies buried in the 100-odd rooms and incredibly thick walls of Glamis seems certain. Listen to Lady Granville again. We were never allowed to talk about it when we were children. My father and grandfather refused absolutely to discuss it. The Lord Strathmore felt sure that a corpse or coffin was buried somewhere within the walls, and the walk, high up on the roof, is still known as the Mad Earl's Walk, perpetuating the legend and dating perhaps from an escape attempt or a place where the poor monster was exorcised. Haunted and romantic, Glamis Castle has many secrets and many ghosts. The end. Don't forget to like and subscribe and press the wee bell notification. And a huge big thank you to all my subscribers and patrons. See you next week. Bye bye.